Okay, so now we've got another task 2 essay, so discussing both views and giving your opinion. So you've got to say introduction, side A thinks, side B thinks, and then what you think. And the topic is whether some people think parents should teach children how to be good members of society. Others, however, believe that school is the place to learn this. Discuss both these views and give your opinion. So should children be taught how to be good citizens by their parents, or should parents leave it up to schools to teach children how to behave well in society? So let's see what this candidate has done. So we've got our introduction. So there is an opinion that it is parents' responsibility to discipline their children to make them good social members. Okay. So this is okay. My main issue here is that the word social members, I can see that they've tried to paraphrase members of society, and there is a trick to paraphrasing where usually you can sort of swap the word order to paraphrase it, but social members doesn't actually mean anything in English. You would never say he's a good social member. It sounds weird. So what they should really paraphrase it to is citizen, to make them good citizens of society. Social members isn't something that makes sense in English. And then also, rather than this comma, there's no, we can't really comma it here. This should just really be an and, so it should really be connected with a connective word. So there is an opinion that it is parents' responsibility to discipline their children to make them good citizens. Should really have an and connecting these two ideas. Then they go on to say, there is also a counter-argument that the school should be the one that does the job. In this essay, these two opinions will be reviewed, and what is optimal among the two will be discussed. What is optimal among the two? I can see this candidate is trying to use sort of more high-level vocabulary. It just sounds strange when they say what is optimal among the two will be discussed. So it would be more natural to say these two opinions will be reviewed and the best solution will be discussed, or the strongest argument will be discussed or will be decided, or something like that. The optimal among the two sounds a little bit odd. Overall, this is, as an introduction, this is okay. You're sort of repeating the two, what the two sides of the debate are, but what would make this better is to let me know specifically what argument you're going to talk about. So you could give an example. So you could say, there is an opinion that it is parents' responsibility to discipline their children and make them good citizens, due to the fact that parents are the ones who guide children through their earliest years, or due to the fact that parents are ultimately the greatest role models to their children. Okay, so then I know that in paragraph 1, you're going to talk about the role of parents as role models. Okay, so it shows better paraphrasing than just paraphrasing what's in the question. Okay, that's a sort of very basic thing that this candidate has done, where they've just repeated the two opinions that are in the question. Okay, so to improve that, extend it, give me some more detail. What will you talk about? Give me a hint about what you'll talk about in the rest of the essay. The other thing this candidate needs to do is give me your opinion. Okay, what are you going to argue? Where are you ultimately going to lie? After I read your introduction to a task 2, I should know, what will you talk about in paragraph 1? What will you talk about in paragraph 2? What's your opinion? Okay, what will your conclusion be? That should all be laid out for me in your introduction. So this is why planning and thinking before you start writing is so important. Jot down a little memo, a little plan on some scrap paper. You can write it in English, you can write it in Korean. What arguments are you going to make? What evidence will you use? What is your opinion? Okay, and let me know in the introduction before you start writing. Okay, so that's what I'm always telling people. Tell me what you will argue. So let's have a look at their first paragraph. So many of those who root for the idea that parents should socially discipline their children mainly focus on the fact that the parents are those who give the first social interaction to their children. We don't need this comma here. This is an unnecessary comma. The first thing is many of those who root for the idea that. So I can see what this candidate is trying to do. Again, they're trying to use more high-level vocabulary, but root for the idea. Again, root for doesn't really work in this situation. When you root for something, it tends to be a competition, usually related to sports. So I was watching the basketball match. I was rooting for the LA Dodgers. I don't know if they're a basketball team. Or I was watching Manchester versus Liverpool and I was rooting for Salah to score, or, you know, it's more like a competition. You would say, oh, good luck in the ballet competition, I'm rooting for you. But we wouldn't use to root for really in the idea of a debate. So a better way to phrase it is many of those who support the idea that parents should socially discipline their children, or many of those who argue that parents should discipline their children. Okay, that's more appropriate for talking about a debate rather than root for. Parents should socially discipline their children. I don't really think socially discipline isn't really appropriate to what the question's asking. I can kind of see what the candidate means, should socially discipline their children. But the meaning is a little bit unclear to me, because I'm like, what does social discipline mean? So a better way to say it would be something like parents should instill social values in their children. That parents should instill social values, or parents should provide good social lessons for their children. That would be a little bit clearer for me to understand, rather than socially disciplining their children. Because what is social disciplining? What does that mean? You would need to explain it more. So it would be better to have a phrase, something like this. So this kind of goes on. From infancy, children live with their parents and learn from them. That is why, aside from genetic factors, in many cases, children tend to resemble their parents. I like the start from infancy, good, nice vocabulary. That is why, as we've got a good clause here, candidate's written a complex sentence. Hooray, complex sentence. I love to see them. The only issue I kind of have with the sentence is they've got a weird colon here. I'm not really sure what the function of this colon is. I think that they're trying to sort of connect it like a compound sentence. They don't really need it. Colons, usually we use them when we're listing things or when we're attaching two simple ideas together. It doesn't really work in this sentence because it's a longer, complex sentence. We don't need this colon. So you could just replace it with, and that is why. So it could be replaced with an and. Then we move on. Consequently, nice linking word. This initial interaction with parents becomes the foundation of children's character for the rest of their lives. With children's characters for the rest of their lives. Thus, again, good connection. Those who believe in parental discipline, good phrase, parental discipline, think that as the first and the most influential teacher, it should be the parents who teach their children how to become good social members. So this is a really good end to the sentence. They explain their ideas. They say, parents, children first learn from parents. This becomes the foundation of their characters. Therefore, they're the first and most influential teacher. Therefore, parents have the main responsibility, not school. Okay? So what they've done is they've logically explained their idea. So they've not just said, because parents raise their children from birth, they are the most important people. They've then explained why. Why they're the most important people? It's the foundation of their character. They're the first and most influential teacher. Therefore, it should be the parents. So that's how you extend your argument and you present a more cohesive, logical argument in your paragraph. So that's what I thought this candidate did really well. You've got another extremist, we've got good social members here again at the bottom. But I already talked about that, but it's popped up again. It's a little bit odd. All right, so then let's look at the next paragraph. On the contrary, nice link. I like it. On the contrary, many of those who support that it is a school's job to socially train children highly focus on the fact that it is a school where the children encounter the interaction between their peers for the first time. Okay, so again, job to socially train children. Again, socially train. It's a little bit of an odd phrasing. I don't think it's exactly what the question is asking or what the topic is talking about. So I would replace it with something like, is the school's job to make children responsible members of society? Would be a better way to phrase it. Because I think that's really what the question's asking about. Rather than you don't really become trained socially, at least not in the UK that I'm familiar with. It's about becoming a responsible member of society, or becoming a socially conscious person, or becoming a considerate member of society is also another way you could phrase it. And then they've got job to make children responsible members of society, highly focus. If rather than highly, usually we would say heavily. I'm heavily focused on something. So when I was studying for my PhD, I heavily focused on childhood development, or the book heavily focuses on the experiences of Korean immigrants to the UK. So we would, rather than saying highly focused, we usually say heavily focused. So children heavily focus on the fact that it's at school. Maybe I don't think we really need this comma, where children encounter interaction, where I would just say where children interact with their peers for the first time. So not like parents, not like, here we should just say unlike. Unlike parents, peers, students do not always say you are the best. This is a little bit, the meaning of this candidate's meaning here is a little bit unclear to me. Unlike parents, you would just say peers. Peers do not always say you are the best. So I guess that I understand the candidate's kind of saying that your peers sometimes push back against you, or don't always give you positive feedback. In a school, children start to learn socially judging others and to be judged by others, and this is a genuine social interaction outside of the home. The main issue with this sentence is there's too many commas. We've got 1 comma, we've got 2 commas, we've got 3 commas, we've got 4 commas. That's too many commas. We can get rid of them. So in a school, we don't need this one. In a school, children start to learn socially judging, socially judging and to be judged by others. Maybe we don't need any of the commas. I think this sentence would be okay without any of them. That was just too many unnecessary commas, is my feeling. With peer interactions, children learn how to objectify themselves. They learn that they have to be nice to others if they want to be treated the same way. Okay, so with parents, children learn how to objectify themselves. This, again, the use of this word objectify isn't really being used correctly. So if you objectify something, you see something as an object and not as a person. So you could say, often in modern society, women are objectified, or I hate it when men objectify me, or something like that. So that's the way it's most commonly used, to say something like you don't see the other person as a person, you just see them as an object to be used. So it's not really appropriate to use in this context. So we would say something like children, rather than saying children learn how to objectify themselves, you could say something like children learn social skills, children learn emotional maturity, would be a good thing to say. Or children learn how to respond to social cues. Okay, so social cues is a good phrase to know. If it's a social cue, it's about learning how to react to what other people are saying, or to body language, or to tone and intonation. You know, where you ask someone, oh, do you want to hang out? And they go, oh, maybe later. But actually you can tell from the social cues they don't want to hang out. So that's what we sort of mean by social cues. So that would be a better way to phrase this sentence. Overall, with this paragraph, it's slightly weaker than the first paragraph. But I can see that they are making a consistent argument, and they're trying to, again, they're extending their point. So they're not just giving 3 or 4 different reasons why a school has a job to train students to be good members of society. They're giving a reason, and then they're spending 3 or 4 sentences explaining the reason and why they think their reason is strong. Okay? So this is a really good example of how to just focus on one reason and really extend and support your argument by trying to explain logically why do some people think that. So this is a really strong point of this candidate. So let's go on to the last paragraph. So this is where they give their opinion. I agree more on the second opinion. I agree more with The second opinion. Okay, so this is good. You're giving me your opinion like the question asked you to. My slogan is, be a good parent, leave the rest upon children's freedom. So rather than slogan, you have like an advertising slogan. For your personally, you have a motto. My motto is, be a good parent, leave the rest upon children's freedom. Again, we've got another use of a colon here. This candidate, there was another colon in the previous paragraph too. This candidate, I think maybe they had just had a lesson about colons. I'm not sure. I think this one's okay. Like you're attaching two short ideas. I'm like, fine, keep the colon. It is well known that action speaks louder than words. Actions speak louder than words. In my opinion, it is enough to show my children a good model to follow rather than teaching them how to be social by words, since children often resist or get bored of verbal teachings. We've heard of verbal teachings. Yeah, I think that's okay. The phrasing is a little bit odd, but I think it's okay. One day my children will go to school and through peer interactions, they will naturally learn how to engage in society. There's a phrase used in English. We often tell people, show, don't tell. So like, showing someone an example is better than explaining them to you. So they could have included a phrase like that as part of their argument here, which would have been like a less common lexical item, which would have helped their vocabulary. Overall, I think this is fine. They've told me what their opinion is. They've explained why they believe in it, and they sort of summarize their opinion. So overall, I thought this was okay. So overall, a pretty good answer. For task achievement, I gave a 6 for task achievement. I think that they can sort of extend and sort of give some more specific examples for their task achievement. I think that would have improved it if they'd included a couple of specific examples as they're talking. Coherence and cohesion, good use of connectives, lots of nice connectives there, a very good logical organization of information. So that was fine. Vocabulary, I gave 6.5 for vocabulary. I could see they were really trying to use more specific high level vocabulary. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So that's just something they need to be more careful about. Go back and check the words that I highlighted and make sure they understand how to use them. Grammar, again, they were using a good range of grammar, sometimes successfully, sometimes less successfully. So that was the only issue. Sometimes it wasn't quite as accurate. So overall a 6.5. And if I was telling this candidate what to improve, first thing for task achievement, I would tell them go back and review your introduction. Make sure you're writing a slightly stronger introduction. And make sure that you're going back and you're checking that you're using vocabulary more accurately. So those would be the 2 areas I would ask them to improve on.